Okay, so I do this update every month because I want to share with you guys the latest headlines, the newest data, but not in that like stale keeping matters current fashion.
Right. Not like broadcast journalism.
I love keeping matters current, by the way, but it's just, it doesn't tell you what you should do with the information. So the point of Property Pursuits is that you watch this for 30 minutes on the first of the month and you know what you're supposed to do with the information we gave you. If we don't accomplish that, feel free to tell us so in the chat. And why you should be listening to me, I've been in mortgage lending 13 years. I've also studied human behavior for 5 years, and I just tell it like it is. So my goal is that you get excited about the opportunity we're seeing here right now, because it is a big one, and that you understand what's happening so that you feel confident making a decision for yourself. I'll tell you what to do, but you should do what you think you should do. My job is to educate you enough that it's responsible for you to be making those decisions. Okay, I've introduced myself. Now let me introduce Nicolle. So Nicolle's with Chase International. She's a realtor here in Reno. I've known her for a really long time, but I wasn't cool enough to work with her because she worked with my older brother, and I was just like the little assistant.
I know, I'm loving this girl power thing. I love your brother, but this girl power thing. And
I'm so much cooler, huh?
You kind of, sorry, Neil, she's kind of cooler.
Yeah, so once you try me, you don't go back to the boys. That's not very nice of me, huh?
Well, it's Women's Month, so we can say those things. It's our month. We get one.
That's true. I'm supposed to be doing the Future is Female this month, but I haven't gotten inspired about what the speaker or the topics should be, guys.
Something will come to you, though. But there's a lot going on. We got a lot going on. You got your hands full with all these
I need them
pivots.
I need people to tell me. If there's something you think would be inspiring, here's what I'm thinking of doing the Future is Female on next time. Because we've done, real estate investing, and we'll always come back to that home base. But then we did empowering women with wellness, confidence.
Financial, you did financial one.
Yeah. I want to do empowering women as parents.
Yeah, I like that, talking about us as moms and how two things can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
And
it doesn't have to look like people think it should look. Yeah. Like you don't have to be all in on staying at home, being a stay-at-home mom, or all in on being a career woman. You can maybe dabble in both. And
it should be your prerogative. Because that's my version of feminism, is not that you have to be a hustler or a boss babe. It's that you are doing what you want to be doing, that you feel empowered to make that choice. So if you guys know of anyone who'd be really good at speaking to that, whether it be honoring yourself by taking care of yourself, whether it be the work-life balance hustle, whether it be parenting, because Lord knows we could all use that. Okay, so anyways, do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, yes.
Tell them about you.
I'm Nicolle Gust. Yes, like she said, I'm with Chase International. I've been with Chase for 18 years, but I have been in the real estate industry for over 20. I'm a real estate broker, which just means I have more education than your average bear. Kind of pride myself, like Shivani, in getting information, knowing information, kind of knowing all sides of it, and being multifaceted, and not just real estate, but life insurance, other things that make the whole process of home ownership or investing,
You take a holistic approach.
Yes, a holistic approach. There it is. Because I was over my words. But no, that's me. I am a mom of 6 and... Just six. And yeah, just trying to do the everyday hustle. And this is really cool because, these little things, these little monthly property pursuit webinars give you some kind of up-to-date information. And like Shivani said, we're going to give you the tools, we're going to give you the third-party information, and then you decide what fits for you and what works for your life so that you can make the best decision, whether that be taking advantage of opportunities or waiting or just getting started. We just want to give you guys information so that you can make the best decision for you.
Totally. So well said. Because it's not, this particular podcast is not us selling you anything, right? Like you're not sitting across from us. You're not our client in this moment. So we're going to give you really raw advice and what we honestly think.
Right.
And what we would probably do ourselves.
Yeah.
So the first thing, I want to ask you something. What is the worst part about being a realtor?
Right now, I just feel like everybody's a little bipolar. I feel like sellers, they want to sell, but then, or they need to sell, but then they have this unrealistic ideology of what that looks like or how much they, or what they're entitled to in equity. I feel like buyers just feel like they're just acquiescing out the jump, like, God, these interest rates and these down payments and all this stuff. And now we potentially have to pay for real estate agents' commissions. So it's like, we want to buy, but do we want to buy? And we're going to, so everybody's just a little bit just right now. And it's unfortunate because there is really great opportunity. And if you look at things historically in terms of interest rates and inflation and costs, I understand that it feels like everybody's getting pinched, but the long-term picture, if you can hang on or if you have the right direction, is really, there's really some good opportunity for you to get into the market and build some equity or build the cornerstone of wealth, which is real estate.
Have you had anyone have to pay any buyers have to pay their agent's full commission yet?
I have not seen it yet. So, and I explained that to my sellers, like that's not happening.
It was what a big nothing burger.
It didn't. I know. It's like that stupid movie. It was not stupid, actually good. That Mean Girls, where Gretchen tries to make fetch a thing, and it never was going to happen. So it's like they tried to make a buyer's agent commission a thing,
and it just didn't.
It just because you are as a buyer, you are coming in with so many fees, and what sellers sometimes fail to realize if they're not educated properly is your comps are reflective of your neighbors paying buyer's agents commissions.
That's an angle I haven't heard explained that well.
Yeah. So, I mean, what you're getting is reflective of 99% of your neighbors paying a buyer's agent commission. And yes, everything should be disclosed. And what it did do is put it back in the conversation of negotiation. But no, nobody's having to pay their full agent commission. But it's definitely now an extra thing we got to talk about.
Yeah, which I kind of like that part.
Yeah,
like, I think you're right. The transparency, I like that people are more aware. What the bummer is how it scared some buyers away.
It scared a lot of buyers because they're like, we can't afford to have a down payment and these interest rates and all these other fees and buy furniture and do all these things and pay for our buyer's agent. So yeah, it scared a lot of buyers away.
I think it's fair, and especially now that I'm seeing what you're saying about how it's factored into the price that all your neighbors paid both agents. Mm-hmm. But I also have always, I always check myself when I think things are fair from inside the industry.
Yeah.
Because we're rarely on the other side, right? Where we're walking through it as a buyer.
I think it should be an integral part or a requirement to become a real estate agent or a lender. Like, you've had to go through the process.
But I think you should also have to do it again once every 5 years.
Because we refinance, have to,
You forget what it feels like.
You do.
I've talked about that on the show a lot, but I've never been a seller. So
you haven't sold a property yet?
No, I can't.
You just keep buying all the properties?
I cannot sell a property because what would happen to my business when I chose one realtor to sell that property?
I know, but
every other realtor would stop doing business with me.
Oh God, that's so dumb. I hate that for you. I hate that for you. Like, come on. That's part of your business is working with multiple agents.
I have built a bedroom and a bathroom onto my house because I couldn't move because I would be so doomed if I sold my house with someone and not with everybody else.
That's ridiculous.
I'm trapped.
If you're an agent that would not work with Shivani because she didn't use you to sell her house, then I don't know what to tell you. Then it's just no.
I'm not taking that risk. I'm not gonna go down that bridge. Okay.
I give you permission to use another agent. I mean, you'd be dumb, but it's fine.
There it is. Okay. So interest rates. Today our main topic is the spring buying season, but before we get into that, we have to talk about interest rates because you guys. So I have a chart that Nicolle is showing you right now. And Nicolle, will you just wave at me?
I want to see this. What does this chart say?
We haven't figured that out. Okay, it's really a challenge for us that we haven't figured out how both of us can see this. Yes, this is an amazing chart.
Wait. Oh, okay.
So I'm showing them on there. Will you wave at me if anyone has questions in the chat? Okay. So I'm showing them on there how there was a bunch of green, and green is good. Mm-hmm. And we were seeing yields trend in the right direction. Interest rates were into the 5s last week.
Yeah.
There was people with government loans that we were locking low 5s. It was like we made it, because do you guys know how many people can afford to buy homes when interest rates are in the 5s?
Yeah, and it changes the game.
There's a major market unlock that Nicolle's going to get to in a second. But when interest rates are like that, there's just hope in the air. It was amazing. And then over the weekend, which you're aware unless you live under a rock, we started a war. We attacked Iran.
Yep.
Well, I guess I shouldn't say we started, because I'm not an expert on foreign policy, and I'm not going to pretend to be the most informed person on what's going on in the Middle East, but I'm going to tell you the impact it's had on mortgage bonds. And you can see where I circled on the chart. That was Monday. Bonds fell off a cliff.
Well, and I think that it's important that you talk about mortgage bonds, because again, I think there's a common misconception about, when they talk about the Fed's rate increase or decrease or whatever, that people automatically think, Fed's cut rates, that translates to mortgage rates. But really the bigger impact on mortgage rates, as Shivani can go into, is bonds, the bond market and those types and the demand for them. And when you go to war, people get weird, volatile. Things become volatile. People get worried about where if their money's going to disappear, what's going to happen to the stock market, and that has a negative impact. So on Sunday, when I woke up to, the news, I immediately checked my little mortgage rates app that I have, and I was like, oh, mother. And we're back up.
It's bad because, well, none of this to say that interest rates are more important than the lives at stake here. 100%. Right. There's greater issues at stake here. We're just talking about interest rates. And
we're just staying in our lane because Shivani and I could go off the deep end on our opinions of foreign policy.
On the ripple effects of these.
However, we can just talk about how that impacted our field.
So it is, when there's times of uncertainty, okay, what's the question?
No, the question is, our feed froze.
Oh.
Well, I can't help you with that. We just have to keep going. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the thing about interest rates when we have a major event, usually in times of uncertainty, you'll see more demand for mortgage bonds, and you will see investors move their money to safer asset classes like treasuries, which improves mortgage interest rates. But the reason we knew it wasn't going to go this way, and then the extra surprises that got sprinkled in, are what Nicolle was saying about people being unsure about what's happening with their money and sort of freezing, investors freeze. But then the big thing was it's inflationary. Yeah. So there's a lot of oil that goes through Iran. And oil prices going up impacts a lot of other goods and services.
I don't know if you've noticed, but gas prices have also increased in the past couple of days.
So when that happens, it's very, very inflationary, and that's what the markets are scared of. And so that's why we saw mortgage bonds essentially lose about 50 basis points. Interest rates went up about half a point in 2 days, on Monday and Tuesday as a result of this. We are seeing it calm down today because Trump spoke yesterday and said that he'll do whatever it takes to keep the passage of oil running. I don't know that he has that kind of authority or power, but the markets liked it at least, and today we've stayed pretty steady. Right. We still lost that half a point, but we're not losing more at the moment.
Well, and what you're hearing is that, it's very reactionary based on what these, and again, investors, which is a conglomerate of a bunch of different factors, right, what makes them feel warm and fuzzy. They're not feeling warm and fuzzy. Interest rates are warm and fuzzy. That's like the layman's terms to explain this. And so when you have war and then you have impact on inflation, which could affect gas prices, construction costs, just every day-to-day stuff, you have people with money that are less willing to feel warm and fuzzy, and that means jacking up mortgage rates to hedge their bets, right? Am I explaining that right?
Yeah, and if we zoom out away from this war, what was happening before and why we were seeing such momentum with mortgage bonds was there's a new Fed chair coming. So Nicolle talked about how the other half of this, not directly correlated, but a big influencer of what happens with monetary policy is the Fed, right? And there's a new Fed chair coming, Kevin Warsh, and he made some comments about that, really the battle with inflation is done because AI could reduce concerns about inflation so much, where we could have major economic growth without having prices jump up because the cost of that growth is less expensive utilizing AI. The other piece of the puzzle was that inflation numbers themselves, even in advance of any of his predictions of what will happen to inflation with AI, inflation is already trending in the right direction. And then the other thing that was really bringing interest rates down was the job market is starting to show clearer and clearer indications, which we've talked about a lot in previous months here, that it's breaking, that there's concern, and that we need some stimulus from the Fed to make sure we keep buzzing along. Because really that's what they do. They just pump in sugar into the economy at certain times to keep us going so that there can be long-term economic stability. So aside from the war and having no crystal ball of how it will continue to impact rates, if the stability we're seeing today continues, then the trajectory overall should be good.
Right.
Heading into the spring buying season.
Which spring is in what, a couple weeks?
Yeah, and it's really interesting because a lot of people don't understand that the spring buying season is a real thing. Like outside the industry, I'm not sure that the average buyer or seller knows this time of year is like the Olympics for us.
Which is crazy because just like we were just talking about on how, perception or, feeling warm and fuzzy, for whatever reason, people associate spring, warming up of weather with like, okay, this is when my house can show the best, or we are now dusting off all the old cold winter and we're ready to emerge with new listings. So typically inventory goes up. Because people are, not as scared to, the holidays have settled. So they're preparing their homes and they feel like they're more show ready with a yard blooming. And then buyers also are kind of waking up from a hibernation, like, okay, I think, we can move by the summer. And it's kind of a mess because you've got now more listings and now you have more buyers. And so it's this like surge of activity on both ends.
Do you think that interest rates coming down that much will impact the amount of inventory we see?
I was just talking about this in my monthly newsletter about how right now could be the best opportunity, and all experts are saying this. The chief economist at National Association of Realtors, you've got several other economists that are talking about how this could be the best time for buyers in 5 years. And part of that is due to the fact that we are seeing more inventory is up nationally, but even in Reno, which we have been for the several years very low in inventory, we're starting to see an increase in properties, which is, sellers aren't loving it as much because it's made the prices come down a little bit because, supply and demand. And buyers have a lot of buyers have taken a pause because the interest rates jumped up so significantly that they just couldn't justify it. Yeah. And with them coming down, and they've been watching, and with that little pop under 6%, now buyers are like, this might be as good as it gets. Because I think that we can all agree that we might not see for several years 3% interest rates.
I don't know if we ever will see them again.
I mean, and those aren't real.
I don't know if we ever should see them again because
Right.
when we saw interest rates in the 2s and 3s, it set us up for this war on inflation that we've been in for a long time.
It did. And, and here we are. So I think buyers are now really starting that pill is now swallowed. Like, okay, if we can get a 5, this is the time. This is the time to do it. So they are jumping off, and I think you can attest to that. Did your applications go up last week?
Yeah, it's crazy because I'm just one person, right?
Yeah.
In one little tiny market. And when you see the news move the needle on how many applications you get in a single day,
it's crazy.
It shows you that people are paying attention, and to me, it proves that there is in fact pent-up demand. That people want to move.
They're trying to do their best to time it, but they're also at the point now where people that have tried to time it are just out of time.
Or they're the emotional fatigue.
Yeah,
of trying to time the market.
Either we're going to do this or we're not. Yeah.
So if I can afford this payment, I'm going to make a move, and I think that's really a wise move. Like,
me too.
You can't keep trying to catch this falling knife, because what I've seen with interest rates, because I watch it too closely, I obsess. There's a lot of loan officers out there who, when you go into contract, you get locked. It doesn't matter if it's a good day or a bad day in the market. They just want to make sure that you won't get jerked around. I mean, to speak to their strategy, it's not a bad one. They want to make sure that the rate won't go too high for you to qualify, and they just want you to get set on what your monthly payment's going to be. Meanwhile, I wait. Like, I'm looking for the exact right moment that first week to lock you in, because I want to get that 1/8 of a point in improvement for you.
And it pencils. I mean, it saves you a couple bucks.
But in doing that, you have to be hyper obsessed with what's going on and predicting what's going to happen and how traders will trade and what what black swan event's going to come smack us upside the head. And here is what I have learned from my gambling, you guys.
Which is, you are gambling, because what if it goes up?
I know.
What if it goes down? But again, you also have the skill to be able to identify some of the tricks and trends and all these things that would affect it too.
I'm a conservative gambler, okay? I'll just say that. Like,
okay.
I'm not, when I see like a good window, I'm going to lock it for them. But I'm not just locking blindly, is what I'm saying. I'm doing it intentionally. It's not just because you went into contract. If we saw some, like, if it was a bad day for bonds and we have every reason to believe tomorrow will be better, I'm going to float you.
Yeah.
So that being said, I have seen that every time interest rates try to get better this year, every time bonds rally, they get smacked back down by something. So my advice to you on that is stop waiting for more improvement, because it's probably going to just go like this all year, and we'll stay in the very same neighborhood of just below 6% or just above 6%.
Right. And again, it's important not to get just tunnel vision on the interest rate, because there's so many other factors in the market that can help you in the big picture, like closing cost credits or being able to negotiate certain terms that are in your favor. That can also help I mean, what does it matter if your interest rate's at 5.9% as opposed to 6.2 if you're paying above asking price for a property, or you're not getting any closing cost credits, or it doesn't work. So again, you really need to look at things in more of a bigger picture, that there are ways to offset some of these costs and concerns. And it's just about asking the right questions. Even if you're not ready to have it happen tomorrow, just what do I need to do to prepare? What does my credit score need to be to get this? How can I get my payment here? What am I needing to look at? And how can I start preparing so I can put my best foot forward?
Agreed, because the interest rate's just a number that you will very rarely think about after closing.
And you're not marrying, they say date the rate, marry the house. I mean, at any point in time, if those interest rates dipped lower and you've already procured your property, you call your lender and you can refinance. And there's ways, lenders now and have packages where you can refinance for low cost. So you're in a really good position. Your rate will never go up once you secure the house, right? Unless you get an adjustable rate, but I'm not ever recommending you do that. But there are situations, and if you're savvy investors, I mean, that would work for you. But I'm talking about just your average Joe 30-year mortgage person. Your rate's not going to go up once you lock it. It could always go down. And if it does, you're in a prime position. You have the property. You're not competing for it, because we all know, and what we're seeing is the second those rates come down, we got more buyers. And when you're competing with more buyers, that means you're competing, multiple offers, things are getting bid up, and then the money that you thought you were waiting to save just disappeared times 4 sometimes.
When you're talking about there being more buyers, sellers love that, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
to finish the conversation on the spring buying market from the seller's point of view, I was reading that homes listed in May and June net the seller 2 to 10% more in proceeds than the annual average that year.
Yep. And that's because of buyer demand, supply and demand. Now, the spring market, I think, is going to be a little different, because sellers, especially, and I can talk regionally here, locally, sellers have gotten a little spoiled and entitled because there's no inventory. There's been a really good buyer demand and an increase in population growth here, and a demand for good properties, so that if your property is priced right, shows well, you're sometimes getting multiple offers, but likely getting an offer quickly at the price you want, which is a lot more than it once was here in Reno. We have seen the price growth here in Reno exponentially in the past 10 years.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah, but I mean, as a seller, we are now seeing there's more inventory. We are starting to see some more properties come on the market, and that means more competition for buyers. And if you're not pricing it appropriately, or you're not putting yourself, out there appropriately, with the fact that buyers have felt like they've acquiesced over the course of interest rates and over the course of like all of this stuff, now potentially having to pay their buyer's agents, they are either going to come in and they're going to nitpick you, or they're going to discount you altogether. And that's why you're seeing some properties that would have sold in minutes sit on the market now longer.
Yeah, because once the buyers smell blood in the water, then they're going to negotiate.
That's right.
But spring is favorable for buyers too, just like Nicolle said. So moving on to the perspective of this buyer's market, the spring buying season, from a buyer's point of view, Nicolle was saying it's a good time for buyers, and that's why it nets sellers more money.
Yep.
So it's really a good time for everybody. But the reason why buyers like spring, I mean, the curb appeal thing is not nonsense. It's real.
It is real. It really is. When you pull up to a house and it's got yesterday I showed a property and this little cherry blossom tree was blooming, and it was just, it really was beautiful. And you're like, oh, this is, it makes a difference instead of just like an old dead tree. Just
right. And people don't want to trek
tree.
through snow to see properties. More importantly, and the data shows it, people don't want to move in the snow.
They don't want to move in the holidays. They don't want to have to deal with any of that.
They want predictable weather. They want to be settled in their new home before the new school year starts. They're getting their tax refunds right now, which is boosting their down payment. And corporations do their relocation assignments in the spring. So you're also seeing that everybody who has to move for a work or for a new job or for a posting, it's happening now. So that's why outside of interest rates, spring, every year, regardless of what's happening with interest rates, spring is a season for moving. And that's what people do. So what advice can we give them? Oh, wait, I missed telling you guys that you can follow us on Instagram, because we both put a ton of content out every month. So you don't have to wait for this monthly market update. You can follow me at Shift Peter. You can follow Nicolle at Your Reno Real Estate Expert.
Yeah.
And we should have those up on the screen for you. Okay, but before we leave you today, what you should do with this information. So how would you prepare if you were a seller for the spring buying season?
Okay, I would get my buyer hat on. My mentor used to tell me that, get your buyer hat on. But no, as a seller, you really need to put yourself in the position of a buyer. You need to know what your competition is. You need to go, okay, why would I pick my house over that house? You got to get realistic on pricing. Like, honestly, at this point, you're not, by overpricing, you're not, leaving money, or underpricing, you're not leaving money on the table. By overpricing, you might be discounted altogether out of the gates. So pricing it right, making sure that you have done your due diligence on checking out the competition and putting your buyer cap on to go, okay, why would someone choose my house? Curb appeal, making sure your house is decluttered and ready to go. But really, like I said, the main fundamental thing is, why would you buy your house for the price you're pricing at over the ones that are already for sale? That's how you can do to prepare for it and making it accessible for buyers to see. Nothing is worse than having a house that is priced right or looks pretty in pictures and not available to show until the weekend. So just be ready to sell.
Like, be ready to show your property.
Be ready, because it's the spring market. There's buyers out there. They're going to want to see it. So if you want to sell, be ready to sell.
I like that. If you weren't a realtor, but you know everything you know as a realtor, how would you choose your listing agent?
Based upon, well, there's a couple factors, and people used to say, you hear sometimes, buyers go, well, I found my house for my realtor. That's not the job. The job isn't necessarily, back in the day when there was an MLS book that got put on your table and that was the only way you were going to find out what was for sale. Absolutely, sure. But now you have the internet and anybody can scroll through any of the apps to look at homes. So finding the house isn't necessarily why, you hire an agent anymore. So if you are hiring a listing agent, you want to make sure that your listing has the best photos, best marketing, best exposure, so that they can be found on the internet by anyone, right? You also want to have somebody that's going to be able to educate you on all the nuances that could happen during your listing period. Okay, so tell me about what's going on in this market. What are the buyers looking for in this price point? What does need to happen to my property? How does it need to look? Can you help me make it look that way? Do you have vendors? Do you have connections that can help me do that? And then more importantly, someone that's going to be honest with you, not someone that's going to oh yeah, you can get $1 million for your $500,000 house, but someone that's going to say, I hear what you're saying. This is what the third party evidence is showing. This is what I'm prepared to do. And somebody that's going to help guide you in that number and stand by it so that you're not bait and switched and your property isn't sitting there. So really what you want is education, and you want somebody who has the connections and wherewithal to help you get from point A to point B, which is, what do I need to know and how do I get there to successfully sell my house for the highest price possible, and how are you going to expose it?
I want to second what she's saying on an agent who understands the nuance.
Yeah.
Because as I mainly work with buyers, right? So I'll give you the strategies for a buyer, what you should do with this information today. But before I say that, when I advise my clients, especially those first-time home buyers on going into contract, I tell them, you're not agreeing to buy this house. You're just taking it off the market so somebody else can't buy it while you do your due diligence. When a seller accepts an offer, there's a major transfer of power from them, having been the holder of the asset, choosing from multiple offers, being in the place of power. They accept that offer. All the power kind of shifts to the buyer, because they now start inspections, appraisal, and loan contingencies where they can cancel and get their money back.
Well, and that's an important thing too about a listing agent is listing agents need to be educating you to exactly what she just said. Just because there's an offer on the table doesn't mean your house is sold. And you better be prepared, and somebody better be educating you. What could happen if inspections come bad? If you have a 1920s house, is your agent recommending that maybe we get pre-inspections so that you can know what's going on and get ahead of it? Because if you list your house and you've got knob tube wiring and black mold, that's a deal killer, and then you're back on market, and that is again like a bad stamp on your reputation going back on market. People are like, why? What's wrong with it? Well, stuff. So educating you on anticipatory skills of this is what could happen, because once the buyer gets in the driver's seat, you now are just kind of in the waiting game of their due diligences, appraisal, inspections. Even if their dad comes to visit and sees it that following weekend, and you had a rager that weekend and it looks like a mess, and the dad walks in and go, why would you buy this house? Like, you need to have somebody
that's... You're speaking from experience here. This has happened to you?
I've had You get the family coming into town. It's like, you need to maybe clean up your house if they're going to show it again. And you need to make it accessible, because then it's weird if you don't. So you have to have somebody that's going to tell you that.
Coach you through all this, so that I would know again, I've never sold a property, but I would know that I had chosen a good listing agent if every juncture where we're having a discussion about something that's come up, my listing agent was saying to me, remember, we talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yep.
And you knew that we'd have a couple choices.
Nothing, you're not surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's the key. Now, from a buyer's point of view, I think that the way I would prepare for this right now depends on what your income situation is.
Right.
So if you are self-employed right now, you best be having your lender look at a draft of your returns before you file them, because you will be stuck with that return for the whole year. You will not be able to change what your buying power is for one full year until you file taxes again. That's how it works when you're an independent contractor, small business owner. If you have an S Corp, an LLC, you need to have your lender look at the draft before it's filed to let you know, with your very aggressive approach to deductions, where that's going to leave your buying power. That being said, you have to weigh your tax liability, and there are programs like bank statement loans, profit and loss statement loans, asset qualifiers. There's all kinds of plan Bs, but to get the lowest possible interest rate, qualifying traditionally, you will be stuck with this tax return until you file again. If you're a wage earner, you need to make sure your lender has your latest W-2 and your latest pay stubs, because like I just said, spring is when corporations hand out their raises, their relocation packages. You got your end of year bonus. Mm-hmm. Everything's hit. You should update your qualification with your lender. You should let them know if they need to repull credit so that you can make sure you have the current interest rates. And I would be checking with your lender every Friday to update your mortgage report, because your lender gave you a mortgage report that you're using to analyze every single property, so that when you tour the property, you already know what it would cost to live there and how much you need on hand to buy it. You should ask them to update that mortgage report, because that's how often we're seeing a major move in interest rates. And I'm not saying that from the point of view of you need to be obsessed with interest rates, but once a week, if you've got a pulse on how your buying power's changed, then
well, and it's your money. This is your money. You should have a pulse on it. What did that interest rate dip save you? What is it? What is your buying power now versus what it was? Or conversely, oh shit, what does it look like now? You need to make sure that you have a big picture on what you can afford when you're going out shopping, so that you don't fall in love with something and the next thing you know, the next day of interest rates completely blows that in the water because you didn't take into account that it could affect your affordability if interest rates rose. Mm-hmm. Right?
So if you're watching us live, then you're watching in the circle. But if you're not, we're going to put up a QR code so that you can join these events, so that you can be the first to know on the next Future is Female, Mortgage and Mimosas. I also put out a weekly blog with all this information. So be sure you're in the circle. If you're watching this on YouTube, scan that QR code, or on Instagram. And then if you want to book a one-on-one meeting, I'm always happy to chat with you, because we've gone very broad and we've shared a lot of general information. You need specific advice. Yeah. And I would love to sit down with you via Zoom or in person and give that advice to you and answer any questions you have specifically. Nicolle would love to do the same.
Absolutely.
So send her a DM on Instagram. You've been such a great guest.
This was fun. I just love that you do this.
I learned from you. I have a new perspective.
I always learn from you.
And I'm really glad that you made the time to come on.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I just want people to have all the information, because there's so many common misconceptions. I mean, there's no way that people really still think that you have to have 20% to buy.
No,
people really still think that. So it's good to have the facts and have information, and being a free resource is really cool. So I'm happy to help, and I'm happy to be here. I always like seeing you.
Okay, thanks guys for watching, and we'll see you next month.